Drake, when talking about Utah in the Big 12, can they win it in 2024? I think they can. It's going to be difficult, as we're going to talk about in a second, but I do think there's a chance that they can win this conference just because of the level that Utah football has been playing at the last few seasons. And they're going to lose a lot after this year, as I said. We'll talk about that in a second, but they're going to have a lot of guys coming back, and just the identity and the style they play. Defense wins championships, run the ball, control the clock. Utah's always going to be really good at this thing. So while there's questions about how the quarterbacks are going to be next year as well, I do think if Utah is strong in the trenches, and I expect them to be again, and they run the football, I do think that there is a chance that Utah could win the Big 12 in 2024.
No Dalton Kincaid this season. No Mr. Pick Six and Clark Phillips. Utah's trajectory into the Big 12, to me, depends on how well this team can play in 2023. Can Utah show in the last year of the Pac-12, we are a caliber unit that can win the conference? To me, they're my pick. A lot of Washington is smoke and mirrors. I think Utah has it set up with Cam Rising, if he can stay healthy, to win the Pac-12. Here's the problem, and here's the reason Utah will not win the Big 12 in 2024. Now, I want to preface this. Somebody out there is screaming at the TV or screaming at their phones like, oh, yes, they can. Kansas can win the Big 12 in 20. Any team can, quote, can win the Big 12. Somebody's got to do it. The reason why Utah will not do it is inconsistency under Kyle Whittingham. And again, somebody is screaming at their phone and their TV. Look, all 16 teams can have me on. I can't say that all of them can win the Big 12. Look at this. A loss to Oregon State, a loss to San Diego State, a loss to BYU a couple years ago. Then last season, you drop a game to UCLA, Oregon, Penn State, Florida. Those are better teams, but still, where's my big one? Kyle, where's my big one? Where's my you can't come
to USC last year? That's not a big one?
You can take Lincoln Riley year one USC. That's fine. I got to watch Lincoln Riley get his ass handed to him a couple of times in Waco against Baylor teams that weren't that good. So when I look at Utah, I asked you, can your 4 losses win the Big 12? Can your 4 losses? And I think no. And here's also this too. Take it with a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt, because I don't hate Utah. I really don't. I think I've said that on a show before, but I don't. I do think Texas Tech's going to own this league for years to come. I think Kansas State is really good. I believe that there are a couple of these new teams. Maybe Colorado under Deion Sanders can have a turnaround. Utah, to me, is it, and here you go. I'm not blowing hot air up your skirt. I'm telling you how it is. Utah, to me, is a upper half, obviously, Big 12 team in 2024. Can they compete with Texas Tech and Kansas State and TCU, who just went to the national championship game? I'm not going to say yes yet. I'm not going to say they can win this league yet. I need to see it before I can blow that hot air up your skirt.
First of all, I like that you came in hot right there. I personally
got fired up. I'm sorry, JT. I got to take it.
You started out so well. You won us all over. You're like, going Clark Phillips, Dalton Kincaid. Like, I like Utah. They're my pick to win. And then you totally swept the rug out from under all these.
And then they're not my pick to win the Big 12 in 2024. I'll give you the Pac-12 this year, but not the Big 12 next year.
Like I said, I disagree with a few of the things, but I'd rather focus on the Big 12 persona, especially. The biggest reason I think that can Utah win the Big 12 in 2024?
Yeah.
Yes, they can, but it's going to be really tough because I just don't know. We haven't seen – look, Utah, they've won a lot. I mean, when you look at their last 3 full seasons, they've won 31 games. That would be the most of any Big 12 team in that span. And when I say full seasons, I take out the COVID year. But I will add with an asterisk, had the COVID year been in place, and Cam got hurt against USC, so that's another thing where it's like, well, maybe they would have been better if they had Cam again. I don't think Utah was set up for as much of a successful year that year. Jake Bentley really struggled. So there's some other things as well. I can get behind some of the things that you brought up, but it's just hard when you're going to lose. This Utah team could lose their top 2 running backs. They will use their quarterback. Yep. They're going to lose their best, not 1, but 2 pass catchers. And then defensively as well, you're going to lose 1 linebacker, potentially 2 to 3 defensive linemen that are really
JT,
good.
wait. Are you hearing what you're saying right now? Yeah. Are you hearing what you're explaining to me, and then you disagree with me and say that Utah can? I'm not saying they can't.
I was trying to be devil's advocate, play both sides.
Saying they won't.
You just jumped in right away with the negative side. So I would love to hear for you how, since I drove in the negative there, what would be Utah's path to winning the Big 12 this year?
Utah's path to winning the Big 12 in 2024 is cannibalism. It's cannibalism. Yeah. It's the Donner Party. It's what it is the team that wins the league goes 9-3. Utah has not proven under Kyle Whittingham, hey, we can go undefeated. And look, that's a tough thing to do. It's a terribly tough thing to do. So that's no slight on Whittingham.
I don't know if any of those Big 12 teams have proven that recently either. That are
Bingo. And that's what's going to help Utah is this is a league of cannibals. A 9-3 team can win the conference. A 10-2 team can win the conference. If Utah can play with consistency, if Utah can get over the hump, because you look at what has killed some of these recent Big 12 champions is a kind of a rogue loss. Like a Baylor lost in the regular season to Oklahoma State and then came back and won it. You got a TCU team that obviously their season they got their first loss in the Big 12 championship game against Kansas State, but at 12-1, that Baylor team's a 12-win team. Give me a Utah team that can go 9-3, 10-2 in a year where everybody else in the Big 12 goes 9-3, 10-2. There's your shot at a Big 12 championship. And I believe here's where you get a great advantage. Utah knows what it's like to play in a conference title game. If you've got a 9-3 Oklahoma State against 10-2 Utah in the Big 12 championship game, give me the Utah Utes because they've been in conference championship games. They've won conference championship games under Whittingham. So if you get up to the doorstep, if you get right there, I've got a lot of confidence in Utah. It's just a matter of being one of the lucky teams who are 9-3, 10-2 that are able to wiggle their way into that mix the way the algorithm, the ratio, whatever it is, falls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And the one thing that's really we are in uncharted territory for this coming college in 24 and just in general is all these teams relocating conferences. We haven't seen how are these teams going to do in New Year's, playing in new environments, against new teams, new recruiting landscapes. How is all that going to change everything? I think that's going to be really interesting to watch overall. Just because I have a little bit more time before I want to squeeze an ad read in, I will say to a couple of the points you made against Utah, the 21 season, I get what you're saying with the San Diego State and BYU game. I will say Cam Rising came in, didn't play against BYU, and that was Charlie Brewer. And I know I know Brewer was your guy and did some cool things, but this
not my guy. Not my guy.
Not your guy.
Not my guy.
Not your guy.
It wasn't your guy either.
He's definitely not my guy. I thought maybe just because of a little bit of the success you guys had, you might like to claim him a little bit more, but apparently not. But yeah, we really Utah. That was not the best version of that team that year because they hadn't had Cam in there yet. San Diego State, he came in at half because Brewer was struggling so much and then mounted a comeback. But you do have a really good point about the road losses last year, the ones against UCLA and Oregon. I know Cam was dinged up a little bit, but still not. But I mean, he's worth showing as a quarterback. Just in general was a tough look, and you should find a way to win that Week 1 Florida game overall. I think if Utah would go back, they really wish they could have too. So I think a lot of good points and fair points you made about why Utah could not struggle, but still not go to the Big 12 championship. Yeah,
JT, there's a lot of coulda, woulda, shoulda in there, and I get it, right? Everybody is, we were on the cusp, we were right there, and look at a Baylor team that was 6-7 last year, who I liken to a Utah or a BYU. To me, there's a pot of teams, 5 or 6 that have had recent success in their conferences from the Pac-12 or the Big 12, who remind me of each other, and there are a lot of fan bases who say, we could have won that, or we were close to winning that, and I agree, I 100% agree, but I also again. Still lost the games.
Yes. And you're right. And that's what will be interesting to see if they can do it against a slew of new opponents come in 2024. And one thing that's going to hinge on Utah's success in 2024 is just the state of the program in general. Because as we mentioned, they're going to be losing a lot of talent. So that is what we're going to be talking about in 1 second.